I mean, you try your best to be a loving mother and wife, sending them out every morning with a clean shirt on their backs, clearing up the breakfast things after they've gone, making sure the place is clean and tidy for them to come home to. Then there's their games kit to get ready for the next match. I like it to be spotless when they go out onto that field. Not that it's ever appreciated. Oh, and the loving wife bit. That'll be Guy's tedious senior management dinners. On the one hand, I've got this physical life. It's what everyone can see, or the way one reacts to one's environment, I suppose. And we're not just talking hot flushes here. No, it's things like keeping the house clean and tidy. At least that's something I can do well. Oh, and then there's all the other dutiful villagey things like helping with the Meals on Wheels and arranging the church flowers. To be quite honest, I don't think I could survive if I didn't have my other existence. It's all up here. I live in this sort of parallel life, you see, untouched by my physical reality. Whatever happens there belongs to me. No one else can touch it or define it. No one else can control it. Perhaps not even me. Well, that's where I get my ideas from, for my writing. As she watched her brother embark from his ship, he was accompanied by a tall, enigmatic stranger, a dashing naval officer. Inevitably, after going through the emotional wringer, a series of misunderstandings, and helping him cope with the desperate loss of his wife, I, the heroine, marry this man of mystery, and that's where the fantasy usually fades, because at that point it's run its useful life. It's just a given that when he's home off duty, we'll look forward to days and nights of amazing sex, intensified by the months apart, and that I'll go on to have beautiful children, and of course I'll age very slowly and gracefully. There's quite a market for my stories, you know. Twin Seton Tweeds, Lady Lucinda's Pearls of Wisdom, The Afternoon Tea Companion, ladies' magazines all with their gussets hanging out for a tale of star-crossed lovers who come right in the end. I emphasise the word ladies here because we are talking light romance and certainly no heavy petting. Well, that's where my expertise comes in. I am the queen of genteel euphemism. He held her tightly as they melted into the night. We all know he sailed his ship up the Panama Canal, but we don't want anyone spluttering over their best china now, do we? Not that I spend as much time writing as I would wish. A couple of years ago, Guy insisted we bought this great rambling place, and it's the devil's own job to keep it clean. He'd always had his eye on it, and even though it was the wrong time of our lives to take it on, I agreed. I mean, well, Julian was just about to go off to university. We really should have been looking to downsize. And you should have seen the garden when we moved in. Well, this huge sprawling plot that hadn't been touched in years. It was like a wilderness out there. And of course, Guy just went off to work every morning and came back, and not always on the same day, and far too tired to take any interest in it. Even then, he's usually off to some church committee meeting or other. Well, that's when I decided to join the polite circle that is the Upper Welford Greenhouse and Garden Society. Thought I might try and at least pick up a few tips. Well, it's there that I met Simon. We joined round about the same time. Well, I must have looked a bit out of my depth, because, well, as I was pretending to admire Mrs. Winkerman's silk tassel bush, he came over and whispered, "Are you a horticultural virgin too?" Well, that broke the ice. Well, not that I do a tremendous amount of gardening myself. Can't be doing with all that grubbing about in the soil, getting my hands dirty, or trailing muddy boots through the house. No, we have someone does a few hours a week for us. But at least going to Greenhouse and Gardens means that I know my onions, as well as other members of the Aliaceae family, and I can make sensible decisions about what can go in the same bed together. As for Simon, well, I think he was just looking for some kind of activity to fill his day. He'd just retired at 55. They can do that in psychiatry. Apparently it's very stressful looking after people with mental health problems. Simon and I, well, we found we had quite a lot in common and so much to talk about. Soon found myself looking forward to every first and third Wednesday evening of the month, and for no apparent reason, applying a covering of barely nude foundation, a natural lip gloss and hint of blusher, just before I set off for the village hall. As she came towards him, he noticed she had a fresh outdoor look, which made her appear much younger than her years. Poor guy. Well, he's always so exhausted when he gets in at night, can barely hold a conversation. Just likes to sit quietly and read his newspaper. But he is the most wonderful husband, you know. So supportive and super with the boys. But before I realised, Simon had slipped in by the back door, become part of my fantasy world. But I never think myself unfaithful. Well, no, not at all. Even though with Simon I can go wherever I want, do whatever I want with him. Because it's all in here, you see. Well, it's mutually exclusive to real life. It has to be. Fantasy must never give way to reality, because then you would break the rules of the game. And that would be dangerous. Very dangerous. And anyway, I don't really know what Simon feels about me. Well, he always seems very friendly, but then he probably is with most people. Although, when I got on the coach for the Greenhouse and Gardens outing to Alnwick, he did move his newspaper from the seat. Well, I took that as an invitation to sit next to him, and I think his welcoming smile affirmed that. I can't count the number of times I've relived that moment. And more. As the coach veered, their bodies lurched violently together, and for a moment the intimacy ignited a torch that only they could see. On the journey we got to know each other a little bit more, chatted about our kids, how the older ones were getting on at university, how he doesn't miss working in the NHS. His wife still works, said she was a very clever woman, professor of some obscure specialty in medicine. Seemed very proud of her. Well, I didn't bother to mention about my evening class in creative writing, even though Simon did seem very attentive to everything I said. But then he's probably like that with everyone. I should imagine it's difficult to switch off after all those years being a psychiatrist. Simon's now on the committee for Greenhouse and Gardens, which means at the meetings he has to sit at the front. I usually sit a few rows behind him. And whilst everyone else is fascinated by the winter protection of non-flowering shrubs, I am fascinated by the few remaining strands of Simon's hair, silhouetted in the slide projector. And I'm almost overtaken by an urge to plant a very wet kiss on top of his shiny dome. And before I know it, we're taking a romantic walk along a vast, empty Northumberland beach, where, finding ourselves consumed with passion, we head for the dunes. Not that I'm routinely attracted to the follically challenged. Guy has quite a shock of white hair, very distinguished. But with Simon, well, I suppose we've got to know each other. That mischievous smile, the laughter lines, watching different moods on his face. And he has got the most amazing body. Has been in a rowing club ever since he left university. It's strange, but just at that time in life when society decrees that a woman like me should be thrown on the proverbial scrap heap, one actually finds a new confidence. And, well, you can't help but feel that, well, that one's sexuality has been revved up a notch or two. Even putting on weight becomes curvaceous. My boobs are now the first thing you see coming round the corner. Guy thinks it must be the HRT. Can't believe how I've changed. I'm always up for it. Perhaps a woman just reaches a time in her life when she thinks, what is there to hold back for? And now Simon's just rung. Thought I might like to look at his new seed catalogue and should he bring it round? Well, I said, oh yes, that'd be great. Just give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes. What on earth made me say that? I'm sure with his powers of psychoanalysis he doesn't need to ask why. Well, actually, Simon, it's so that I can put on my best silk underwear, slip on my tightest jeans and put on a top which shows more cleavage than is good for a woman of my age. Do you really think he'll notice? But we've never actually been on our own before. You know, together. Just the two of us. Not that anything's going to happen. Dear God. Please don't let me be unfaithful. But if, for instance, something did happen, and it just might, should we go all the way on our first time? Or should I play it coy? Oh, don't be ridiculous. You're a happily married woman. Simon only wants to bring his seed catalogue round, and I'm sure he'll be sharing it round everyone else. And I bet they're not behind the door waiting to seduce him. Look, you've just got a mutual interest, that's all. Why should I think I've been singled out for special attention? But just supposing, well, say if something did happen. Well, not that I'm expecting it to. But if it did, it wouldn't mean that I don't love Guy. Well, no, not at all, because I do. Besides, we're not going to. We are absolutely not going to. She made her way towards the door, heart pounding, bosoms heaving in anticipation.